All right, welcome to episode 2 of the Total Business Transformation experience here. This episode is all about confidence, charging high prices with confidence and standing by it. And again, this whole workshop is about helping you build a successful coaching practice, high 6, even 7 figures, with coaching that's completely aligned with who you are, what you're meant to do, who you're meant to serve. It's just really in line with your soul's purpose rather than, just kind of copying what works for other people. This is really about, building your coaching practice your way, so you can, make the impact you want and feel lit up, inspired, and loving what you do and have all the financial, wonderful success and all those great things. I'm Brian McCarthy, and joining with me is Kavita Singh. Welcome, Kavita.
Thank you, Brian. I always love having these conversations with you.
Thank you. Me too. All righty. So this episode 1 was all about clarity and getting clarity on connecting what you're doing in your coaching practice with kind of your bigger picture of your soul and how that kind of helps you stay lit up and inspired and helps you create your business for more of an even ease and flow state versus the just kind of pounding your head against the wall and not getting anywhere, things not really working out. And then you feel bad about it because you're doing it not for, those internal reasons that are satisfying in their own right. And this episode, it's about confidence. And I'm excited to start because I'm curious to just hear this question. Kavita, she told me her story when I met her a little bit, high level, more of the high level notes. She started her coaching practice, I think 10 years ago. Charging Amazon gift cards was how you got paid. And now you charge 35 grand for 3 months of coaching. So how do you go from Amazon gift cards to where you're at now? And especially with the confidence to charge, to say, my coaching is worth 10 grand a month. Where does that come from? Take us on the journey.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, it was an interesting journey. And for everybody, you'll find a theme that interconnects everything that I talk about has a lot to do with my inner guidance. That is my North Star, and that's where I make decisions from. So that being said, I was guided to create this business just about 10 years ago. And at the time, I was living in a third world country in South America. And so what that meant was the political systems and the financial systems and all that good stuff have different kinds of rules. And therefore, what was happening was I could certainly use my card as a MasterCard and pay for services on the internet, but there was no system in the country that would allow me or anybody to receive money via a credit card, people paying to you. If they wanted to do that, they had to do a money order or a wire transfer or something of that nature. It wasn't you could have used your credit card and paid me for a service and me receiving the money within my country at the time. So the next best thing for lower price offers was Amazon gift cards. And so that was what I decided to give people as an option to pay me after having much conversation with the various banks, both here in the US and back then in the other banks that I had in that country, where the ultimate system was for me to get a bank account with a US bank for all of this to work. And then, of course, there's a whole other process to make that legal. So as I recognized that, I made the decision that I was going to do that, whatever it took, legally and morally, of course, and ethically. And I didn't have a ticking time bomb on my head to make it happen right away. It was okay, this is where I want to go in my business. And so, yes, I simply followed the guidance for the offers that I needed to do. It was truly the feedback that helped in the process too, because, I would put a price on an offer that I heard to be the price, and then people will pay me more than that. I've always had people
Yeah, that
pay
was one of
me.
those things that you talk about, and I'm like, that's not how real life works, Kavita. Like, what?
Yeah, so let's say, for instance, if my um, service was $200 for something at the moment, somebody would pay me 222 $222 because they enjoyed the whole aligned numbers kind of thing, and they would pay me in that way. And they felt good like paying me more because they were so grateful for the experience. So it didn't feel like it was any obligation or expectation or some um, game with themselves. It was just their form of gratitude in how they were doing things. I've also had uh, somebody pay me 2.5 times more the price of a service just because they enjoy that. So at the time, I used to do things like Akashic record. I used to um, pay attention to my intuitions if somebody was saying something, and it felt off to me. I would say it, and I think that also rings true up to today, where I have the courage to say the truth, whether you like it or not. And still say it in a way that you can hear it and understand it and accept it and use it to change your life, and in a very organic and rewarding way, you know.
So, so it sounds like your pricing model was a constant, like, just tune in and see what price you hear.
That is it up to now. That's always how I operate. That's always the place that I operate from. So that's why sometimes some offers might be um, at a ridiculously low price, but I hear create these things. This is the price for it, and I'm like, okay, and that's what
Yeah.
I do. And then there are other offers where it's like, okay, this is the price for this time frame, and after that, it's going to be this price, And so once I hear that information, I communicate that, and that's how I'm able to work with the prices, because I also recognize there's a beautiful um, healing aspect that happens between the price and the person. And what I mean by that is each price speaks to a particular set of people at a particular point in their life. So it's a very beautiful synergistic dynamic that's happening. And the price is a part of that result that they get. So whatever they commit to and the way that they show up and the level they're able to integrate their things is directly connected to the price. And I don't mean
Yo,
it by
yeah.
high.
So
Yeah, I don't mean it by high or low. I just mean it's a frequency that is required for that thing at that time with those people. That's what I mean.
that's crazy, because that's so disconnected from, like, everyone else. It's like, the industry is just like, we'll just double your prices or just what makes you happy and all the thing. But you're like, no, this is the number that's like needed for them in their journey.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, in some way I don't fully understand, but it seems to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And for clients who've had me for more than 1 year, let's say, because I run year-long programs as well. Um, they can tell you that um, when a price is being said, for the most part, especially if they know me and they've had some sort of relationship with me, they would tell me that was the price that they were hearing in their minds, or that was
Yeah.
that was the price that they knew. You've even had this experience with me, now that I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right? Like that's how it works. And so it's a very clear price from both sides. So it's not like yeah, like you said, however the heck the industry works. I really don't care for that system.
That's a running theme that we will cover in much more detail in episode 3 of how everything that everyone says for how everything works. Maybe you don't need to listen to any of it. there's definitely pieces that can be helpful, but there's a lot more wiggle room than people might want you to have you believe. So what about, was there ever a time where you're like, the guidance is like, yeah, charge them 10 grand for a month. And you're just like, what? Like most I've made is like charges us 2 grand for a month or something. Like, do you ever have like doubts or just like when you reach those higher prices of like, that's crazy, or you're just like, if you say so, let's go.
Yeah, so like it's been 120K a year kind of thing. And that's the price you say up front. So the price is a price. That's it. I can't even argue with a price. That's what it is. But
Because it's not
on
even
a
your price. It's just like, it's like, this wasn't up
exactly,
to me. This is just what it is. Are you in or not?
exactly. However, I do recognize and understand where people are at in their journey and how they feel about things. And I certainly understand and empathize with those things. And um there's also a lot of power and magic in that. Like it's not where I'm like, oh, I should have a client where they have all of this set up for them so they can just simply be like here and pay the thing. It doesn't work that way either. Sometimes, of course, somebody's in a position like that and they do it, but it's not the case. Like that's not the rule for everybody to come in. Sometimes somebody has nothing in that moment, but they also recognize that this is a place that they need to be, and it's such a beautiful journey because we both know that we've got to do that magician thing. I'm using that term because we'll explain that later on, where where they're able to access the requirements, the finances to come in, and then for me to help them to expand what that is for them and what it looks like. Um, so yes, that's the shorter version of it. Uh, did
So
I answer every part of that, Brian? Or what did you
enough.
want?
I got a couple more things I'm excited to get into. One being like, yeah, so you'll get on a call where someone's like, maybe you're being told 20K is the price up front, and they're just like, I don't know, maybe they're just like a school teacher. They're just like, what are you like? That's half of what they make in a year. But there's some kind of trust of like, that's the price that's needed. And like, I don't know, are you like figuring it out together, or you're just like letting them go and trusting the universe that they will then come back to you in a month and be like, guess what? I just inherited 20 grand. You're like, what happens?
Usually in that conversation, we both know what the next step is. For them to do that. It shows up in that conversation. So again, I don't come into any of these conversations planning anything. Um, you know that. I am at that level, however, in my business where there are certain programs that I've created and the price point is fixed for the
Hmm.
most part.
Yeah.
Unless I'm guided to like, okay, now it's time to raise the price on this particular thing. So I do want to say that as well. But yes, when I've been doing sessions with people or one-off things, like I I usually have a sense of what that is even before meeting the person. It's not like I'm in a space of being like, oh, I think this person can pay me this much money. I don't ever operate from that space. I actually had this opportunity, and I think this is, the fun part in how God tests your integrity and all these things. Um, I've had a few billionaire clients show up in my reality, um, and I don't even know how the heck they find me. I was just so puzzled by some of these things as they happen. So this particular guy wanted me to do an Akashic records for him. And I don't go on their Facebook and profile them and check what the heck they did. Like even I haven't read your full profile or anything. Like I know it's there, but I just don't do that. I just trust my intuition so much for information. And I'm sure whatever people put up on their profile or their website is old information anyway, right? How often do we go back and update that stuff? So my point being that I did a session for him, and apparently I told him about his business. I didn't even know what business he was in. It wasn't, I don't think it was even stated there on his profile or anything. And then he's like, yeah, just whatever the bill is, send it to my accountant. So he literally didn't care what the number was, and he would pay it anyway. And at the time, if I remember right, I was charging like $150 per session. And I'm like, no, but that's my price for this thing at this time. It doesn't matter who you are, this is the price. And for some people, it can sound unfair if they're like, oh, but am a school teacher and I probably needed a break and he could have paid for it. But that's not for me to decide, you know. Um, that's not for me to decide. And sometimes if I'm guided to do a lower price thing and the school teacher shows up at the time when I'm doing a lower price thing, then it's perfect. They're in the right place at the right time for the right thing with the right price, right? Um, and so that's how I look at it. I don't look at it as this whole, what do you call it? This whole price scale system that we have here in the US. For me, that was a culture shock that I needed to adjust to as well over here because it's weird because it almost sounds like well, if you're wealthy, then you get punished for it because you need to pay more. So then you're actually fostering a system in a country where you're telling people that it's good to stay poor because if you get rich, you're going to get punished. So then everybody stays under the margin so that they can take from the government. I mean, it's just my perspective. I think it's a bit ridiculous in that way. So encourage poverty in that way. And then when you have these sorts of things, you're like wondering what the heck is happening. But that's another story for another day. I just wanted to talk about the whole pricing thing and, how we can think about wealth.
And yeah. So what if like somebody is like, I imagine someone listening to this and then like trying to tune into the guidance and, there's so much muck and fear about what to charge and what people can afford that like, and a lot of people kind of undercharge, but they're like, but that's all people can afford. Or if I charge more, then they'll say no. So like getting that clarity of being able to tune in and find the price versus like, well, I'm just going to charge $100 because that's where I feel my value is. And, they're undercharging and that's not guidance. That's more just their own fear. How do you kind of get out of that into a place where you can like find what the actual price is and it's not just your own fear and insecurity that's making you undercharge?
Right. The complete answer to that would be you working in my program so I can address all the nuances with it. But the short answer of it outside of my program is do what you do to cultivate your intuition so you can recognize the different voices in your head and then recognize when something is the thing and recognize when it's not the thing. Like I would say something is off, it's not quite right. And if you get to that level, that's a good place to start because when you have it and you're on it and that this is the thing, which is where you want to be. And then for the other 80% of the time when you're like, oh, this is not quite right, I can't answer you in a short version because there are a million nuances that can happen in that, right? And Brian, you know me and my nuances very well. It's my superpower. So that would be a sort of conversation inside a container with me.
Yeah, that's what I've learned is, and I think of questions all the time that I'd ask you, and I already know the answer is like, well, it depends. And like, let's drill into all the, nuances going on in the situation, which again is very different from so much of like the blanket one size fits all, just like, well, no, just double your rates, a lot of the advice out there. And actually, yeah. Any like real quick, just like how does somebody get better at discerning their intuition?
I would imagine that everybody hears voices at some point or feels something or sees something, right? Even if it's the voice of doubt being like, hey, you're not good enough, you shouldn't do that, right? And like I said, if you can identify those voices in the mix of all of that, one of them is your intuitive voice, you know. Your intuitive voice is usually quiet. It's almost like a whisper. It might just say the thing once and never say it again, you know, and
That little
until a
bugger.
different point. Yeah, until a different point, and then it says something else for that moment. So you need to pay attention. So awareness is always key, the first part in all of this. Um, and you know the difference in following that voice versus the other voices, you know. So so like I said, I'm using voice here. Sometimes it shows up as an imagery in your, you know, in your mind's eye. Sometimes it shows up in your dreams if it is that you don't have enough space and bandwidth in your daily life. It's gonna show up in your dreams. It can show up in your journaling when you notice there's a shift in your writing, when it's not just you writing anymore from your human perspective, but you're going deeper with something, or you just came across something totally brilliant that, you know, is not, it's all you and yet it's beyond you kind of thing, you know, like those are little moments. Um, I think the better question here, or the better point to make, is not so much about how do you recognize your intuition, but more so that when it does happen, listen to it, do the
Yeah.
thing. Because if you don't, you create huge time gaps between this moment and the next moment it shows up. And so because I listen to it, it shows up all the time, every day for me. And of course there are consequences to not listening as well. So there's that, you
Okay.
know.
Now I'm a little scared.
No, like if you commit to be like, this is the thing, and you know, you got to do it. What I mean by consequences in not listening, the overview word of this, without going into nuances, it's delay. You create delays, right? So, um, and little stories, you know it in your own life. For everybody who's listening, it might be, oh, I got the guidance to go to the supermarket to pick up this stuff and then to get gas for my car. And now I said, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow." And then tomorrow comes and suddenly, you know, something happens, the gas station is shut down. I need to now go, I don't know, 50 miles to go somewhere to get gas. You get the point, right? So delay, it just shows up that way. Um, Again, so everything I say, there's a bit of nuances. So they're further down if you're a more advanced level. Delay, it can look like delay, but it isn't. And that's a whole different conversation. But I just want to point out, if you're starting up with intuition, this is what it can look like from a broad spectrum of things.
Okay. And then, I mean, I'm imagining you still have the experience, even when, you know, the price comes and all the things come to you, if this is how to work with the person. And then the person does the like, oh my gosh, that's just so expensive. Charlie over there is only $20 an hour. How dare you? What are you doing? Like, does that stuff come up? And if so, how does it affect you?
I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never
No
had
one
somebody,
ever.
I've never had somebody do that. But I think, hold on, let me clarify. I also think it's because I've not been in a space of like reaching out to, like, your language, a bunch of people, and saying, hey, you need to buy my thing.
Yeah,
Usually when I'm reaching out is because I heard to reach out to that person. So then
right.
I don't have any of these kinds of experiences. What I can have is somebody saying, yeah, I know this is a thing, but I don't think I can do it. Right? Not necessarily financial or any other thing, but it's just that they feel how much like this is the moment to take that leap of faith.
Yeah,
And you know, it's a wobbly feeling in your system, and they're like, I don't trust myself to do that. Right. And that's, they do need to make that decision on their own. That's not me, that's for them to do. So if they really um choose that versus coming into a space with me, they it looks like they go around the racetrack and not for another lap or two, and then
mm,
they come back to me. But I'm in a different space, so then the prices might look a little bit different from my reality. the level of uh, time and all these things that they get from me looks a little bit different. It doesn't mean that it's not effective. It's just different, right? It's kind of like if you were first class in an airplane or you're in economy, you're going in the same destination, you're going at the same time. It's just different, your experience. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean. It doesn't mean that I take away from them or anything like that. It's just where I'm at in my capacity and how I'm hearing to serve people. It just looks different the second time around, the third time around. And that's why with my programs too, people know that even if I sell the same program, every time I do it, it's different within the context of the program. So it's a whole new experience. And to the point where all clients would be like, gosh, I want to come back in there and do this thing with you again. Like, you don't need it. And they're like, I know, but you do it so well. I want to be there, right? Because they love the experiences that I create. Um, so I've had those kinds of conversations instead, where I've got to people tell people, no, 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 we're going over in this level. You're done with this level. Move on. We need to go over here. Um, but it's just because, again, the enjoyment of what is being created and how it works and all of that stuff, and the time I take with people in addressing their nuances.
Okay. And I also wanted to get to a little story of, yeah, I mean, you have had situations of someone saying they can't afford it, and then you lower your rates for them, and then the universe was upset that you did that. So yeah, I mean, that happens a lot of like, oh, well, this person's in a tough spot. I'll just help them out. They can't afford me. And you want to share your experience of how that goes?
Right. So that particular situation, it wasn't that I lowered my rate. It was
Oh,
more that somebody came to me and they wanted help with something. They've worked with me before, but I heard not to support them. Like, I'm not the person.
right.
So, and then they were also not in a position to pay in full. So, and they were in a tough spot. So my big heartedness, I was like, oh, I see where they're at. I know what they're going through. I know I can help them. And so what if they pay in two parts? They really need it. I can help them in this moment. And silly me try to negotiate with God is what happened. I'm like, but I can do it, right? Like, I, and I heard no, like, don't do it. Um, it was just like, and again, this is where people get probably frustrated with an intuitive voice because it doesn't give you a reason of why and the whole breakdown of, all the things for your logical mind. It's like, it's either go here, yes, no, that kind of thing. It's very clear when it actually shows up, but there is no context sometimes. So it was like, nope, don't do this for this person. So just don't do it. And at the time that the person showed up too, I had some time on my hands. And I think that was where I tripped myself up. Because not only can I do it, but I have the space to do it and everything, right? And I did it, and then it wasn't such a good experience. And mind you, this person and I were great and there's much love for each other, but it was just a particular aspect that needed to be addressed. And the guidance was like, no, you're not the one to do it. So fast forward that story, the outcome of that story, they got what they wanted and they moved on in their reality. But then it took a while for them to honor their payments. And then I realized it was my lesson to be like, oh, this was why I heard not to do this. Because um because of this dynamic. And while it seems like a tiny thing, it was a big deal in the grand scheme of things because of the to have complete healing of the experience. that they've gone through, right? Um, so it's kind of like if you went to the hospital, got surgery, came out of it, you're good, you're walking around and saying, the surgery wasn't a big deal. I don't think I need to pay for it. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then it was undermining in that way. And as soon as that experience happened, I was like, oh my goodness, I now see why the answer was no from the get-go. I hear you. I learned my lesson. I accept it. Not gonna happen again. Right? And I say this with the point that we're all um we're all in that space of, sometimes we don't listen to our intuition. And what do you do when you don't listen? When you recognize that, you were not in the right, admit it and then do better next time, right? Like learn from it. Um, and sometimes some of us don't even do that. And I'm like, what are you doing with your life? When I see some people do that. Because now that would be the scary thing for you when you're talking about being scared, Brian. That would be scary for me. If somebody's like, didn't listen to their intuition, got that whiplash from it, the whole lesson played out, they saw it, and they still didn't do something to correct that for future
Yeah.
reference. And then they have to repeat that even one more time or how many times. Like
Ooh.
that doesn't put me in a good space. I'm like, oh my heart, I can't handle this kind of thing.
Oh man. Okay, cool. So the other piece I wanted to cover before we go is the confidence in terms of like your messaging and talking about what you do, and what what holds people up with that, because sometimes like one piece of that is like clarity, the clarity around the messaging, and that messaging being tied to your sole purpose. And that's what we do in the first piece of our program, is the divine messaging workshop of like, what's the message that you're here to get out? How do you say that in a way that resonates with people and excites people? And then people can get that clarity on their messaging. And then what we found out, and why we made the program longer, is then they're still kind of sitting on it. So once you're clear on like who your people are and how to talk about it and all that stuff, uh what keeps people from being confident and then being able to like now go out and kind of do something with it and go put it out there and start to work it?
Right. Um,
There's nuances, I bet.
oh, a million, yes. But I think, you know, each phase is different. So the first phase of getting their message clear is one thing, then being able to use that and communicate that with people is another thing. And so when they get stuck, it's not like they got stuck in part one. They just now need the part two. And that's why we've extended the program to also take care of those details, so that you're fully taken care of. Um, at this point, too, in us having this conversation, my messaging has always been from a place of um, knowing who I am and what I'm here to do. Um, and really targeting only the specific people that I'm meant to serve and guide, and just let the others be, you know, an audience or fans, or some people really love watching what happens, but they're like, no, I don't want to be in the world with you because I don't want to take that deep dive. I don't want to take that leap of faith, but I absolutely love watching the show because a lot of amazing things happen in your reality on a daily basis. And a program called The Watchers for people who love to watch but didn't want to do. My point being here is that when you get to that level, you got to recognize a few things. One, and this is why the nuances are so important. If this is your first time facing that level, in your business in terms of what do I do now that I have my messaging? Or if you've been here before, like I've done my messaging, I've done a few things, I had to come back and revamp my messaging, and now I'm here again. Very, very different outcomes and ways to approach that based on where you're at. The short version of this is if you've never done it, you need to start somewhere. And just don't start because I'm saying start or somebody else is saying start. Start in a place where you feel a little bit sure-footed with yourself. Because if you don't have a system for somebody to help pick you up when you fall down, then you're putting yourself in danger. Don't do that. um, have a support system, have a mentor or coach, whoever it is.
Yeah.
If you've been here before and you've done the things and you're revamping your message and you're showing up again, you're more in a position to be more selective about your audience. So it's not just about putting yourself out there and doing something. It's about getting to that point where you want to make sure that you're attracting the right people for the right thing. And again, nuances in the actual process of that, but at least have that kind of mindset. Um, and don't do things that are out of alignment of that statement. So why would you take on a client that doesn't match what you're doing? You know what I mean? Those are things that it's again, I can talk about archetypes and things. It's saboteur, it's setting you back, it's being prostitute, um, because you're taking money for something that's because you think you can't get money if you don't take on this opportunity and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So yeah, like please honor the guidance, honor your words, do the right thing. It helps so much in that choice. So I hope that helps. And what else do you want us to tell them?
No, I just wanted to recap that a little bit. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a lot of it is just getting really solid and clear of like who you are and what you're doing and who your people are. And, not wavering from that because of, oh, but that person has a lot of money, or like, oh, but this like out of desperation almost, or trying to like wiggle into some box that doesn't really fit there, like selling yourself out basically. Just don't do that, even though it seems really tempting, especially when you got bills coming and you don't know like who else to, maybe you got no other bites going on, no other leads or anything. And yeah, having like that discipline to like stay true to who you are and your coaching and what you're doing sounds
It's
like one
more
piece of
than
it.
Yeah, it's more than discipline too. It's really the law of faith, right? Like, for me, it's like if that's the thing I heard and I believe it and I have a strong faith-based system, then there's no way that it's not going to work. And you've seen me do this as well. I mean, you've met me and me telling a story, and then you've watched me when we created something, and I'm like, in the middle of just talking about something, I'm like, oh, I know who's the person that needs to have this thing in this moment. I
Yeah.
don't even have a page to show them what the offer is, but they need to have this thing. And I heard it and I said it, and that was it. It happened. Like
Yeah.
right there, right? So like money is not an issue. You can certainly get paid for things, but for me, it's like being in integrity with our guidance. Like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, I was not doing that when I started as a coach, because like, yeah, the guidance said like become a coach, like do this coaching program, this is kind of your career path, do this thing. And then so I did it, and then for my first 2 years as a coach, I didn't even tell people I was coaching. I never
Mhm,
introduced myself as a coach, even
mhm,
though like I was still, marketing, and even though I was trying to get away from that, I had so much muck in my head about like life coaches and just that's a lot of grossness in that world, and like what does that even mean, and like yeah, there's a lot that I just didn't want to identify, so I just never, you know owned it in any way. And then it wasn't until I was able to like get over that and actually like it was almost like a little mini coming out party of like, okay, guys, I've been doing this thing for 2 years, and actually I've been doing personal development for 10 years before that, and I just never really talked about it because I had all so much of my own muck. And yeah, that was totally just me like not acting in alignment with like that integrity and that guidance of like, okay, I'll do what you say, but I'm not gonna tell anyone about it. Okay, like that was my negotiation with the universe. Like, I'll do it, but I'm not gonna say because I don't want to get made fun of.
Well, for me too, there's a lot I still don't say online. I could be guilty if it is if we're looking at it from that perspective. But I think for me, it was more the case of like that was not the next step for me at the time. It was like no focus on the delivery, for focus on the client. And what I heard from you in what you said is like you knew that you were doing this kind of work and you were also addressing other parts of your reality in the process. So putting yourself out there and being visible was not the move to make because you had to create the space for it. You had to clean out, whatever you call the muck. Um, so with that being said, if you're listening to all of this and you're like wondering about what the heck your prices should be and how you should start and what your messaging is, at least I think it's a great opportunity for you to jump into that divine messaging workshop that Brian and I have created. You can take that as your first step, and then you can also come in and join the other two parts as the time is right for you. Or you can take that gigantic leap of faith and sign up for the entire program and then have it be delivered as the timing is right for you. Or if we're seeing the timing is right for you, we'll call you out to have you show up in that space. That's how it works. We're walking our talk here. And so we're going to hold you to that fire as well.
Yeah, that's one easy part of just Kavita will just tell you what the message is for how much your pricing should be, and who to be targeting and all that stuff. Like it's just kind of shortcuts. If you're that's what I do, and I can't tell what's intuition or what. It's like, Kavita, I'll run this through your filter. You tell me if this is the universe talking to me or if I'm just being a crazy person here. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Divine messaging workshops, super fun and can help you get that clarity, get that alignment with your purpose. Feeling, like you were saying, just like feeling so solid and like, well, this is what I do. And yeah, the guidance of like, this is what I do and this is what the price is. And you know what? I believe the word you would use was submission here of like, I'm just kind of, I'm just going, I don't make the rules. I'm just following the guidance. And that's again part of that, like where some of that ease and flow can come from. You're no longer racking your brain around prices and messaging and all this stuff because it's you're taking orders. This is what the universe has for me, so this is what I'm following. So and that workshop is just getting Kavita's magical wisdom, insight, and our reflections to just kind of help you get clear on what that is for you. Now that looks like and how to apply it for your business. Cool. All right. And then our next episode 3 is going to be more around marketing and messaging. You'll hear how Kavita did things very different than the way that everyone tells them, including me. Kind of bothers me. I spent 8 years learning marketing, and then Kavita's like, no, I don't need any of that stuff. Like, come on. So we'll dig into that. And then we got a couple more episodes after that, like more about building your business your way and how to pivot with your business. And how to do that without freaking out or burning it all down, unless you need to burn it all down. But how do we navigate those from a place of strength and power and clarity, and not utter chaos and fear and hoping everything goes okay. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you very much.